The unexamined life is not worth living. Welcome to my book review channel, Literature for Life, a channel that is geared towards social responsibility and personal growth. Please do give me a like and share my content if you like my videos. So, the unexamined life is not worth living. This quote comes from one of the greatest minds that has ever lived on earth, and that is Socrates, the great Greek philosopher who lived around 2,400 years ago. We really don't know much about Socrates because he didn't leave us any writings or any books. And all what we know about him is what his contemporaries wrote about him. The most significant of these was his student Plato. Plato wrote, among other books, a small book called The Apology, which was his eyewitness account of the court and the court rule against Socrates. You see, Socrates was a man who thought that his purpose and his task in life is to get knowledge and to seek knowledge. And he would, wherever he go, when he had conversations with people, he would question them in order to see if they actually knew what they were talking about and if they could teach him anything. And that which he realized very often is that people really don't know. And that when you question them, probably they are just living on assumptions. They had no inkling or no idea of what goodness is, what right is, what justice is. And because he used to question people like this, he would often portray them as people who don't know anything. Not because he did it on purpose, but because when they were questioned, they wouldn't be able to answer Socrates. And that would make him a very unpopular figure in Athens, because he would expose the knowledgeable people for really not knowing. So he was a very hated man by the Athenian elite, and therefore they sent him to court, accusing him of corrupting the youth and for not believing in God. Of course, false accusations, because they didn't want him to have influence, especially on the youth, and because they hated the fact that he exposed them for knowing nothing. So this small book that is only around 23 pages is a jewel, really a beautiful written book that is loaded with wisdom, because what we get insight into is the way Socrates thought and the way he rationalized life and his perspective on life. And when you read this book, which is only 23 pages, you really get a keen insight to this great mind, because what you will realize is that Socrates is not some dry philosopher who lives in an ivory tower, philosophizing about life and writing and saying things that are not applicable to life and that are not relevant. In fact, he was a man of high standard. He was a man who actually lived his thought and who put his thought into action, so much so that he was, in fact, condemned to death for that which he believed in. So Socrates was not just a mere philosopher. In fact, he was a moral hero. He was a revolutionary who spoke truth to power and paid the ultimate price without any regrets. And as you will see from the next few quotes that I'll be reading out from the Apology, you will really understand why this man really deserves our admiration and respect. No man on earth who conscientiously opposes either you or any organized democracy and flatly prevents a great many wrongs and inegalities from taking place in the state to which he belongs can possibly escape with his life. A man who is good for anything ought not to calculate the chance of living or dying. He ought only to consider whether in doing anything he is doing right or wrong. I know that my plainness of speech makes them hate me, and what is their hate but a proof that I am speaking the truth? I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. The unexamined life is not worth living. simply a genius. What a beautiful mind, and what a hero that really deserves to be admired and respected. And I wish that we had such characters now in the 21st century. And why should we be reading Socrates now, around 2,400 years after he died? Why is he relevant? Well, I think what makes him so relevant is his views on democracy. He was very much against democracy because he thought that for a democracy to be a good way of governing, then the population needs to be educated and cultivated and intelligent, because if the public was not intelligent and educated and cultivated, then democracy would turn into tyranny, because a smart demagogue or a smart leader would be able to manipulate the thoughts and the feelings of the public, and thereby achieve his aims and purposes. And these aims and purposes could be the waging of war, high tax cuts, or any other thing or issue that could be oppressive of his own people, or any other peoples. So his views on democracy are very relevant today because it makes us question authority. And this is a very healthy thing, because we know authorities throughout history have embarked upon wars and oppressed people to such an extent that we really need to be aware of authority and question authority, and really make sure that in a democracy that everybody forms their own opinions, that we have an intelligent and not a popular democracy. So this is very important. Apart from that, I think what really inspires me personally about Socrates is that he combined philosophy with action. He was a man who really lived his thoughts, who lived his philosophy. It was not for him to write or theorize about life and about values, but in fact he lived that which he preached. And this is something that we really can be inspired by, because thought and action, if they're not intertwined and they're not reconfirm each other, then thought is of no value, and your actions will always be misguided and misled, because you have not really thought about what you are doing. So I mean, philosophy really comes to life with Socrates, because it shows us that to philosophize and that to dare to live your philosophy is a revolutionary act that in fact can be to a great benefit for society, and which in fact can cost you your life. One of the greatest quotes that I just read is the one where he says that we ought not calculate about living or dying when we do something, but we should always be aware of what we are doing, whether that is right or wrong. And the fact that this man is very humble, I mean, he says, the one who knows is the one who knows that he doesn't know. This is a paraphrase of the quote that I just read out. So, I mean, with this quote, he makes us realize that when we attain knowledge, then we will become aware of the fact that there's so much knowledge out there that we have no inkling or no idea about, and that all we know is just a mere drop in the ocean or a sandcorn in the desert. And this humble approach to knowledge is something that we really can learn so much about, because today people can write a book or read a few texts and articles and think themselves as being geniuses and that they know everything. I love the combination of great genius and great actions combined with humility. I mean, this is one of the virtues that are so relevant for today, especially in the social media age that we are living in. So I do really hope that I have inspired you to read this book and to get acquainted with Socrates, because he is a man that is worth knowing. I have nothing else more to say than thanks for your time, peace, and take care of yourself.